Welcome back to another video. This one is really interesting. I want to compare side by side the BYD Atto 3 to the MG ZS EV. So we can see the pros and cons of each model, and it's actually not much of a competition at all. And the one that you'll probably want to buy is fairly obvious to me, I think. So please stick around until the end, and then I'd love it if you could put any thoughts that you have in the comments. What we'll do is just cover some fairly basic statistics for each model, and then we'll talk a bit about the brands themselves, but fairly briefly, and then make an assessment. Thanks for tuning in again for another video. If you didn't know, I make videos every day on EV news and related stuff, so remember to subscribe so you get notified about my new videos coming out every day. And I've also noticed a big jump in subscribers recently, so it is very nice to know that people are enjoying my videos, and I can see that people are commenting a lot, which is also very nice to see that people are wanting to say things and chip in, because that, to me, I think is a big part of YouTube and being a part of a conversation. So let's just jump in with the BYD Atto 3. So anybody that follows the channel knows that I do like BYD vehicles, but for a good reason. That's because I've driven them. They're really nice to drive. I've really had a good stare at the underneath, and I've looked at all the bolts and spot welds and the paint quality and the plastics and the interiors after a year on the road, and they are beautifully made cars. So the basic specs are 60.48 kilowatt hour LFP lithium iron phosphate blade battery from BYD, somewhat infamous at this point for being able to take a nail penetration test without starting a fire, etc. Sometimes you can get them to smoke a bit, but that's about it. But not the blade battery, I'm just talking about LFP chemistry. You can get those to smoke a bit, but the blade battery is very well constructed. So a WLTP range, which I do like the WLTP range, because if you drive slow, like an old person, you can get the WLTP range, which is a big deal for me. You can get 420 kilometers out of the Atto 3, and power, 150 kilowatts of power, so 201 horsepower. Price at the door before any rebate is applied is around 52,000 Australian dollars, but that depends on stamp duty and the cost of the stamp duty, and then you'll get a rebate probably. Currently in Queensland it's $6,000, which is really good. They just doubled it from $3,000 until the rebate money runs out, which I think some people don't realise it will. It will definitely run out, and it's likely to be at some point this year. It won't take too long. So they have enough money for about 7,000 or 8,000 vehicles because they've got $45 million, and it's a $6,000 rebate, so you can do the math. Also, some people, if you're in a household that earns more than $180,000, you can still get $3,000 rebate, but they won't give you the $6,000. So the build quality in BYD vehicles is fantastic. I really think it's fantastic, comparable to more well-known legacy auto brands, and I think that's the sort of look and feel you'll get from BYD. The reliability has also shown to be really good, really good at this point so far. I know someone who has driven 50,000 kilometers in theirs with zero issues at all, nothing at all. Also as well, that person that I know that has driven 50,000 kilometers has driven entirely off of some cheap things that they ordered from the internet, and they've powered it up completely from solar panels they've got laid out in the garden, so that's pretty cool too. Maybe I should come up with a sort of scoring system. This was a thought I had recently. Let me know if you've got any ideas on that. Any ideas at all. I'm happy to create a big sort of chart for the new EVs that are coming out. There's going to be a few more coming out this year, for example. The MG ZS EV, maybe the look of them is like Marmite. Some people say they really don't like it. Some people say they really do like it. Some people are not so bothered. I really like it. I think it looks great. I've always liked it. I really like that they don't faff around with fancy colours with the MG ZS EV. The white one is popular. I really like that. I used to repair vehicles for a few years, about 15 or 20 years ago, and repairing a white car is far simpler than playing around with pearl colours, for example. And repairing vehicles that are white or black is usually much easier in regards to colour matching different panels side by side. So for example, you could probably paint the side, if you look at the side of a car and you just have to repair a dent on the passenger door, you could probably just paint the passenger door and not have to flick colour into the front or back of the car. Whereas a lot of the times you have to. I like that they don't try and be all space age and futuristic. I really like that. It's just a nice car at a decent price. The two versions that you'll want in Australia is probably the bigger two batteries. So the 50 kilowatt hour version or the 72 kilowatt hour version. It's important to note the battery is now much less preferred chemistry. It's the standard lithium-ion chemistry. The main reasons are that LFP battery chemistry lasts better over more cycles, basically, and they're also happier to sit at 100% charge. And they're also like 1,000,000 times safer with regards to fires and starting fires. So this is why Tesla and lots of other products that are for sale, such as portable power stations and new EVs, are coming out with this new battery chemistry, LFP chemistry. But BYD use LFP chemistry, but they case it in their blade battery setup. So we call that a blade chemistry or blade battery. But it's still perfectly fine to get and use standard lithium-ion batteries in cars. And after driving something like 200,000 kilometers, you'll almost certainly have over 90% of the original capacity, for example, probably something more like 94%. The range on the smaller version of the 50 kilowatt hour version is 320 WLTP, which I think is a bit too small for a lot of Australians. I think they'll make the decision to not go for that one, but it is probably a perfectly fine range for someone in the UK, for example. The larger battery, the 72.6 kilowatt hour one, is 440 kilometers WLTP, which is much more like it. And the price for the 50 kilowatt hour version is around $50,000 at the door. And then that can change, of course, if you add on any rebate and depending on the stamp duty. The long range version with the 72.6 kilowatt hour battery is about $57,000 at the door. And again, that depends on the variables. So for example, stamp duty is often overlooked. The BYD Dolphin is a $39,000 car, and in New South Wales, the stamp duty is $1,100. In Queensland, it's $1,500, and in Victoria, it's $2,500 because they're being by the government on a few things to do with EVs. There's no rebate at all. They have to pay much more stamp duty, and now they have to pay for every kilometre that they drive in Victoria. And almost certainly they'll be having to pay extra tax on car polish by the end of the year. So this doesn't make any sense at all. The power on the MG is 130 kilowatts or 174 horsepower, which is perfectly fine. I think that's just modern big car power. No problem with that at all. Thanks to the people that have joined on Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon or YouTube memberships. Links to these will be in the description below. And as I always say, your support enables me to continue creating these videos, which involves dedicating a significant amount of time to thorough research. And the cheapest and by far the easiest way to help is just by pressing the like button. And this signals to YouTube that people appreciate the content, which makes us a very big difference. So your support helps me spread information that promotes the adoption of EVs, particularly in the affordable segment that I think requires quite a big boost. So thanks again. Let's carry on with the video. So the standouts for me when comparing them is that the Atto 3 is cheaper, arguably better looking, at least on the outside, has the same sort of range as the higher end MG, and it also comes from BYD, which is known to make good, reliable, quality vehicles with LFP chemistry in the batteries, which is a big deal. Not just LFP chemistry, but also blade batteries with the LFP from BYD. So the MG doesn't really win at anything other than I like that they offer flat white paint as an option, which maybe is a bit silly. I also like the design of the inside more than the Atto 3. The MG looks much more conventional, and to be honest, that's much more my taste. I'm not really into my cars having blue interiors or weird curvy lines. So if the MG interior was in the Atto 3, I would have considered ordering one. But honestly, this year is going to be a crazy year for EVs, and I wouldn't lower your standards in the things that you kind of want from a car just so you can go and buy your first electric vehicle, when there is going to be an influx of EVs in the next year or two to choose from. I just hold off that a little bit longer, I think. It's worth mentioning that if you're considering an EV and it's your first one, then basically any BYD vehicle I think you'll most likely have a good time with and have little to no reliability issues. And the resale value is fantastic on them. But the MG ZS EV, I don't think will have the same strength at all on the used car market in, say, 3, 4, 5 years' time. MG is also a part of the SAIC, or SAIC corporation in China, which basically means it's a state-owned manufacturer in China. And the quality has been in question quite a good few times over the last few years. And I've seen them up close, and it's definitely not made as well as a BYD, no question about that. As much as I really like the new MG4, for example, I really like it. Drives great, looks great. I've heard customers that have had multiple customers that have had cars riddled with issues, not just a couple of things here and there, but they've had to have dashboards taken out, things just stop working. I've seen loads of people at this point, more people than I can count, say that the car has done an emergency brake on them because it thinks there's something in front of them and the car just applies full braking. These are weird things, but I know them to be true, so I can't not pay attention to them in my video. I need to include that. I know of a person who has bought a brand new MG4, had terrible service, had to keep going back and back and back, and had the car do multiple emergency stops on them because it thinks there's someone in front of them. There has been an oil leak from inside I think it was the diff. I think it was the diff actually, eventually, after having taken the car back to MG 4 times, and the first 3 times MG said there was no leak, and then they finally said it was a leak, but they're not going to fix it under warranty. So they just topped up the fuel, the oil level for them in the diff. Weird things. I'm hearing weird things about MG as a company, so it doesn't really bode well. But that being said, I know of people that have had an amazing time with their MG4. We all kind of know at this point that it drives really well on the British roads, and generally people love the MG4 when they get it. But I just have to point out that there are a few people with pretty miserable experiences. So you, I think, just have to make that decision on yourself, which car you like. So go and have a look, go and have a drive, but maybe just be prepared to want to reverse that decision after 6 months to a year. Either way, whatever car you get, you know. If you're interested in me doing a comparison between the new MG4 and something like the Atto 3, let me know in the comments. Anything like that, I'm happy to change either one of those two. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button for me so that YouTube know that people are enjoying it, and subscribe for more daily videos about electric vehicles.